Welcome back to What I Wish I Knew Sooner. Today we're joined by someone whose work sits at the intersection of therapy, neuroscience and conscious living. She helps people reconnect with who they are beneath all the conditioning, chaos and burnout.
Our guest is Charlotte Braithwaite, award-winning psychotherapist, coach and speaker who helps people bridge the gap between their nervous system and their sense of self. She's helping people and organisations move from survival mode into conscious connection, resilience and authenticity.
Charlotte, welcome to What I Wish I Knew Sooner. For anyone meeting you for the first time, how would you describe what you do and how you got into it?
I'm going to reverse the question. I'm going to say how I got into it first. So I came to be in the therapist chair by being in the client chair first. So I ended up in therapy in my kind of late teens, early 20s. I had what Brene Brown would say is not a breakdown, but a breakthrough. But I ultimately ended up having therapy. Initially was very resistant because I was sort of dragged like a dog to the vets by my parents.
Wow.
Who were like, we don't really know how to help you or what even to do with you. And in therapy, I realized that this was what I wanted to do. So I am a therapist by professional trade, but what I help people to do is ultimately understand how they are built as human beings. Because in today's world, we have built a world, ironically, that is not suitable for our species. So whilst humans have built the world as it is in the modern day, it's not actually taking into account the human design. So I help people to understand what it means to be a human being.
Well, I love that.
I feel like that's something that's definitely needed now as well, since we're living in the age of AI.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that there's, it's such a hot topic. And one of the things that I think makes it all the more important to have therapeutic conversations that extend outside of the therapy room is because as AI becomes more humanized, we and my colleagues notice that human beings are becoming more and more dehumanized.
Yeah.
So we are dehumanizing each other more as AI concurrently in parallel becomes even more humanized.
What does that mean, to dehumanize?
So to dehumanize is to treat each other as if we're not sentient beings, to not see the human in humanity. And whether it's in politics, whether it's in immigration, whether it's in racism, whether it's in difference, often when we see difference, our brains, our saber-toothed tiger brains, see threat. And actually we end up objectifying or othering ultimately our own species.
Yeah.
But that as AI, especially not to name names with AI, but people are using ChatGPT and things like that as companionship, as a friendly voice, without necessarily realizing that ChatGPT ultimately and other AI too tend to agree with you or tend to see. Whereas as human beings, we are messy, we are complex, we are complicated, and we're becoming more impatient with other human beings for what we are. Because a lot of the content that we are consuming and creating is specifically tailored to everything, so we expect everything to be tailored to ourselves, including human beings.
Wow. It's just really interesting because we're definitely people who use it as therapists.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, and it's has its place in helping people to self-understand. And part of being a human being is being able to accept that we have subjective experiences of the world, and that doesn't make one person wrong and another person right. It just means that we have different experiences, and we need to be able to understand experience in each other to have a relationship.
Yeah.
So just to kick off with a laugh.
No, I really like that. I literally went to a conference thing at the weekend called the Long Leader Hall, and there was a lady there who was speaking about AI, and she was just basically saying we're losing our voices as well, completely. So
And our ability to think for ourselves as
Yeah.
well. Like I've stopped using AI to write emails now.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to lose that ability to just have basic communication skills.
Yeah.
You can't use it for everything.
And the fact that you have that awareness is really important, because AI has its place. Like the minute we pretend that it's not here, or we distance ourselves from it and just stick our head in the sands, we further disempower ourselves anyway. So But to be able to use it consciously and say, okay, I still want to keep my neurons. Like, I need my brain to still work.
Brain cells.
To still fire, and that's like a muscle, and we need to flex that muscle. But can I use it creatively, and can I use it to assist and empower, as opposed to just completely take my skills and thinking away?
Yeah. That's so interesting. I love that. Anyway, so a big part of your work is helping people move out of survival mode. For anyone who's never heard of that term before, what does living in survival mode actually look like or mean to you?
So survival mode, I mean, this language that we're using, sort of survival mode, and often people are using burnout or sort of nervous system hijack. It's ultimately around when we are functioning in like a fight or flight. So our nervous system, if we kind of take a look at how the human being is actually made up, our physiology, our biology, our neurology is better suited to saber-toothed tigers than it is smartphones. So we are wired still very much to be compatible with cave life and to live in small communities and tribes, and for most of the day-to-day life to be fairly uneventful, with the occasional threat that we would respond to by our nervous system and our brains and our physiology getting very activated. We get flooded with adrenaline, we get flooded with cortisol. It's a survival response that aids the very thing that we're wired for, which is our survival. The challenge is now, as I said before, we have inadvertently designed a world that is not designed for us as our human design. Our world now doesn't represent the way our brain is wired. So where we have endless notifications, endless stimulation, we're in artificial lighting, our air quality is usually quite poor, we are working ourselves into the ground, we have lost our circadian rhythm, we are living out of alignment, and a lot of the time our nervous system and our brain is in a constant state of fight or flight, and that's what puts our body into this survival state. If we spend too long in that survival state, we end up heading more towards like adrenal fatigue or what we'd call burnout in an occupational setting. So a lot of the time, maybe on social media and things, we see people using the term burnout. It's really meant to be used only in an occupational setting, so in a sort of workplace setting. It's not an individual issue. It's an organizational, cultural issue.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of this as just our way of living. And people think that this is the norm. And whilst it has become our norm, it's not actually how we're meant to thrive.
Yeah.
Right.
We're meant to be living like happy and calmly, not feeling like hustle and burnt out all the time.
Exactly. I think this hustle culture has a lot to
Yeah.
answer for. It's granted more of a westernized ethos, as it were. Like that, we don't necessarily find Buddhist monks in hustle culture. it doesn't quite work.
I can never see that again.
But I think that sense of being in this survival mode has been glamorized. I know certainly for me in my previous corporate career, like I wore exhaustion like a badge of honor.
Yeah.
And so educating people on that, yes, you can run on an empty tank for a while, but there will be health consequences and mental health consequences down the line because this isn't sustainable. Small, healthy amounts of stress. Saber-toothed tiger comes, we fight off the saber-toothed tiger, we run away, and then we return to safety. Fine. But not prolonged sense of fighting off saber-toothed tigers on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So would you say that, like, nowadays, stress, like, maybe it's replying to an email or loads of notifications on our phone, our brain is interpreting that the same as a saber-toothed tiger chasing us?
Yes.
Okay.
Which is why when you step back sort of with a logical mind, if you are laying in bed late at night and an email pops through and you see the subject line and you think, oh my goodness, something's not hit a deadline, something's screwed up, something's gone amiss, you get heart palpitations, you start to panic, you play it over in your mind through the night, your body responds as if it is a physical threat. Now, you know in your intellectual logical brain this is not a saber-toothed tiger, but our body is still responding as if it is. And that's what I believe we really need an education on to help humans to understand the importance of boundaries with tech, or the importance of knowing how to self-regulate and put our nervous system back into a state of rest and digest.
Yeah.
Because we are living unconsciously in this constant flux that's making us unwell. And then we're seeing this epidemic of mental health, and everyone's going, well, I don't really understand why we've got mental health. No one's got problems nowadays. But it's a byproduct of the world that we're living in. And that's what I think is misunderstood.
Yeah. So now more than ever, especially in our 20s and 30s, as you mentioned, a lot of people are feeling burnt out and their nervous system is kind of running the show, I guess. How can we begin to recognise when we are dysregulated? Are there any early signs to look out for?
Your body will speak to you often before your mind does. So I know for me, I can really I lived a lot of my life as a bit of a head on the stick. So even though I was intellectually aware, I was quite removed from my body. And then it's only when you get sick that you're like, oh, I feel really run down.
Yeah.
So really being in tune with our biology and our physiology and listening to our bodies, that's when we usually can get the signs. And rather than become symptoms, we listen to the signs and respond. So whether it's constant racing thoughts, whether it's we are struggling with sleep, whether it's we feel some sort of nervous disposition, that's what we would call generalized anxiety, but our body will tell us more than sometimes we realize. So the first thing is being able to recognize your bodily and mental health cues. And then it's having a series of things to help your nervous system go back into that parasympathetic state, so rest and digest, calm, which we now have to proactively do rather than just we existed once before in cave life when that was our natural setting. So things like learning to breathe properly.
Yeah.
As crazy as that sounds. Like actually being able to breathe from our belly as opposed to like our chest.
Yeah.
Up here. Having longer exhales, really good for our body and our parasympathetic nervous system. Actually listening to certain music is really calming. Walking is really good for us. So it's low impact, low stress activities rather than high stress, even if it's like high impact. So one of the things that I used to do that was a slight mismatch was if I'm super stressed because I'm feeling all these things, I would go hammer it at the gym.
Oh, yeah.
Because that was a good stress release.
Yeah.
But really what I was doing was just continuously putting my body into a state of high impacted stress.
Yeah.
So whilst I thought it was good for me, it wasn't necessarily what my body needed.
That's what a lot of people are doing, aren't they? They literally just go, oh, I've had a really stressful day, I'm just going to hit the gym.
Yeah.
So,
And it has its place, of course. Physical activity is really, really good. But it's being able to actually understand how our body works and what our body needs, which isn't always what our mind thinks.
Yeah. And I guess it's the type of exercise and when,
Yeah.
right? Because exercise obviously does boost your endorphins, which makes you feel happier. But you probably don't want to do a HIIT session when you've had a really stressful day.
yeah.
Relentless. It may be, yes, but don't do that 5 days a week. And
Yeah.
it becomes just another way to channel more stress. We want to be able to bring our nervous system into a state of sort of more equilibrium where we're able to actually sleep and digest our thoughts as well as the nutrition that we take in. So it's really about bringing yourself down to a bodily state that feels more harmonious than
Yeah.
it does acrimonious.
Would you say there's a healthy amount of stress that we need? Because I know that, is the stress hormone cortisol?
Yes.
And cortisol is what wakes us up in the morning, right? So we need
yeah.
a certain amount of it?
Yeah. There's stress in its health form, which is pressure. So without a level of pressure, why would you get out of bed? Right? Like, okay, yes, for the joy of living as a human being. But like, we have bills to pay. We have to be at work on time. When there's a healthy pressure, I don't know whether you've experienced this, where there's like a sweet spot, a bit of a hum where you're like engaged, you're kind of up against it in a way that you can really feel like you're alive and you're
Yeah.
and you can feel quite vital.
Like in that creative state of
Yes.
mind. Yeah.
Yes. So then that would be a healthy amount of stress where you're able to engage and focus with something. But it's when we tip into the stress zone where it's more saber-toothed tiger fight flight zone, whereby actually we tend to over engage, and that's where we need to keep a finger on the pulse. So I don't know whether you would resonate with this. So when I'm stressed in the unhealthy sense, my go-to is normally to try and over-engage with the stress. So, like, I'm going to get on top of everything. Then I'll be able to relax.
Yeah. I'm the opposite. I avoid it.
Do you? I'm literally like, I need to get it done, and then I can just like, yeah.
So
I'm like
the
that, yeah.
fantasy of, like, I'm going to get on top of things. And then when I'm there, then I'll relax. But you never get on top because you actually just create more and more and more.
Yeah.
So we want to be careful that we don't over-engage for too long, that then we tip into, so rather than hyper-aroused, our body goes hypo-aroused. So this is when we sort of tend to shut down. This is more burnout territory. And it's in that place that we get really overwhelmed, that we kind of want to hide from the world. There's a sense of hopelessness and helplessness because we've tipped too far. And our body's like, whoa, I cannot sustain this. So we need a radical rest. We're drawing a line in the sand and we halt. And this is where people who maybe have been pedal to the metal for years just suddenly cannot face getting out of bed. Mm-hmm. And that's what a true burnout looks like.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that burnout is an organisational problem and usually not a personal problem.
Yeah.
What's interesting though is that I guess it's relative because certain people will get stressed out by different things, right? We all have our own tolerance. For example, I love a deadline and I hate not having, like, if I don't have a deadline tomorrow, I'm probably going to procrastinate and put it off for ages. Like, I'm the opposite of you guys. Like, I will put things off. So, yeah, I don't know. I guess how, like, do you describe the relativity of, like, burnout and attribute that to a company?
Sure. So burnout in its definition is the first time it was properly defined, it was within an occupational setting. So it's when workplace stress has not been managed effectively. So it's not necessarily that everybody who experiences workplace stress should have a burnout or will end up having a burnout, but some people have different toolkits to manage stress effectively, or we just have different DNA, different stories, different conditioning. I too often need a deadline, but that would probably fall into the pressure sweet spot.
Okay.
As opposed to where we are so relentlessly stressed all the time. That's when there's an issue, when the stress hasn't been managed effectively.
Okay.
So we're not saying we shouldn't have any stress because we're built for stress. It's more when we're not able to manage it effectively that it becomes an issue. And for some people that might look radically different to other people. There's definitely my relationship with stress. Like I said before, in sort of my previous corporate world, I definitely wore it as like a badge of honor. This sort of competitive, who's busy, who's most stressed.
I'm working till 11 p.m.
Exactly.
Look at me.
Glamorized, whether it's in movies or, there's definitely a lot of that out there. So for me, being stressed was about proving a point, which my physiology doesn't necessarily agree with. Somebody else who perhaps doesn't wear stress like a badge of honor may well not get themselves to the point of burnout because they don't have that same relationship I did with the identity around stress.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And on that point, do you think that the constant state of like pressure of always needing to be productive is one of the biggest blocks to self-awareness?
There's definitely something to be said around being so busy, so on, so preoccupied that we don't give ourselves time and space to self-connect. So if I'm always doing, if I become a human doing, I forget I'm a human being. That's what a lot has happened. When I speak with my clients and when I work with corporate clients, there is this obsession with productivity and output that we miss the value of actually pausing and self-reflecting because there's this anxiety that if we pause, we'll never be, we'll never get going again, or maybe we'll collapse in exhaustion. That obsessive productivity element, I think, well, certainly in my experience with the rise of technology, there is this a lot of the time like an unconscious comparison with how technology can output. And it's not like a conscious, I think I can compete with, let's say, AI.
Yeah.
But there is this, oh, AI can do things so much better than I can. And there's like a self-esteem kind of issue because we're not able to do.
That's so interesting. I've never thought of it like that. Like comparing yourself to AI being able to do way more.
I think that, and like I said, it's not a conscious thing.
Yeah.
I don't think we're having that, like that moment you just had now where you're like, oh, I've never thought about
Yeah.
that. I think we're sort of, with social media, the obsession with productivity was like how much of life could we achieve against our peers. So
Yeah.
who's getting married, who's going on holiday. So it's not even just productivity in the workplace. It's like, how productive have you been with your life?
Yeah.
Have you found your purpose yet? Like, have you built your legacy? Have you?
What's your North Star?
Are you earning 7 figures? Because everybody else around you seems to be. So there's this obsession with output. So the shininess of life
Yeah.
and what we're documenting is one thing. In comparison with your peers, it is natural to some degree. But now there is the technological revolution. Our friend Daniel Priestley talks about this. As we are living at such a rate of change, there is a natural wanting to keep pace. And I believe, and what I'm seeing in the clients that I work with, is that humanity has shifted ever so slightly from, we now kind of know that everybody puts the shiny bits on social media. So yes, someone can put all the celebratory elements, but we kind of know, well, that's just what that is. And that's
Yeah,
what
yeah.
social media does and is kind of there for. But there's this ever so subtle, semi-unspoken inadequacy complex whereby, well, I don't even know how to write an email anymore. I'm going to get AI to write the emails. And then there's this, oh, well, I could spend 2 days building together some format and model, but AI can do it within 5 seconds. And with that, unless we work creatively with it and realize that we have gifts and purpose as humanity, well, what's the point of what I do if AI can do it so much better and so much quicker? And I think that obsession with productivity, and then we're not the ones who are able to be as productive because all our productivity is taken away from us. So the thing that we've identified with of who can be the most productive and who can be the busiest, now the way we've measured our success and identity can be done better by a machine. What's the point of me?
Yeah.
And I think that's the more existential
Yeah.
crisis that is emerging within mental health that I'm seeing, whereby there's this sort of, it's not necessarily that AI is going to become iRobot or the Terminator, but there's
Yeah.
like an inadequacy that's the undercurrent of, well, if AI is going to take my job, what good am I?
Yeah, I can actually see a lot where you're coming from, because there's people like me and Senna who actually use it to help our careers, and we're like, oh, this is amazing, it can do this. But then there's other people who just constantly go, oh, no, I don't like AI. Oh, yeah, I don't have a job in like a year because of AI.
Yeah, because I think right now it's almost like we're still comparing ourselves to people who are using AI. So, for example, I see people that look really productive on social media, but maybe generating all that content using AI, and I might not know that. So I'm feeling inadequate because they have a much greater output than I do. And I do think, yeah, we all need to probably learn to harness AI for our own good.
Yeah.
I think, again, it's the fundamental truth, and what I believe in is that if we can help educate humans on what it means to be human, maybe then we won't compare ourselves to either other humans, because we're all subjective and have a different life path, but also AI or non-human technology, remembering if we're actually living mammals. So let's not project ourselves to be something non-human that is algorithmic, mechanical, and designed to produce en masse.
So you've said before that you wish that we were all taught what it means to be human. And especially when it comes to things like imposter syndrome and people pleasing, which is a huge one. Why do you think that those patterns are so common, especially for women?
In order to kind of understand the patterns around things like people pleasing or imposter syndrome, whether it's in men or women, but especially in the women, we kind of have to zoom out and look at how we were raised and different generational narratives. Certainly for women, many of us come from generational narratives whereby children must be seen and not heard, but women specifically, it's about being the good girl. It's about being compliant. It's about being sweet. It's about being non-offensive a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And so we are trained, we are conditioned to behave well, and behaving well often looks like people pleasing.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a sort of parent-child dynamic. So if we're a good girl, we do as we're told. That if we, sit there and we're not a problem, then we're deemed as good. And so this manifests then into adulthood. One of the things that really for me kind of was one of those light bulbs where I changed my conscious awareness was understanding that there's a self. So we each have a self, and then there's our personality. So quite often we will describe someone by their personality. So like, oh, she's really bubbly, she's a people pleaser, she's a perfectionist, all these sort of labels. But we didn't come out of the womb doing that. Like
No.
the first thing we do or the first thing that's checked when a baby is born is, can it ask for help? Can it cry? Like that we go, well, that's really healthy. The baby is crying. It's asking for what it needs in the language that it knows. And it's as we get older, it's like, suppress the emotion. Don't necessarily be bold in asking for what you need. You are here to make other people feel comfortable by being the good girl, if we're talking about sort of stereotypical pleasing. Understanding that we have an authentic sense of self that is, you often see more in children, like where they're carefree and they're, I certainly was very animated and dramatic, and it's sort of the comments of like, don't be a drama queen. It suppresses that animation that is allowed, you're allowed to express yourself.
Yeah.
But it can be confronting, or it can be, for want of a better word, though I struggle with this word, triggering, right? That if you are out and being animated and center of attention, but I was raised, you shouldn't be center of attention, I'm going to suppress, don't be center of attention in that child. Not because the child's doing anything wrong, because it brings up something in me. So our personality really is just a bunch of protection mechanisms all cobbled together. So our personality isn't necessarily who we are, it's an aspect of who we are. It's why, for example, who I am in front, when I'm doing a podcast here, looks really different to how I am playing with my daughter.
Yeah.
Or how I am here looks really different to when I'm with a client. It's different aspects of my personality that I'll bring forward. And then there's the self that's like a unifying center. So part of understanding whether it's imposter syndrome or perfectionism or people pleasing is understanding these are mechanisms that have helped us to build relationships and keep ourselves safe, but we've possibly outgrown them. When you're a kid, it's really important that you try and, it's not really important in that we don't want to advocate it, but as a kid, we know we are dependent upon our caregivers.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that they like us. If they don't, in its most crude term,
Yeah.
we're scared that, I am dependent upon you for my survival, so I want to make sure you're okay so that you can take care of me. And I also want to make sure that you approve of me because I need you to take care of me.
That's so true. Yeah.
So it's all unconscious, right? And it's a natural process. But when I'm an adult or when I'm a teenager, then we start to rebel a little bit because we're starting to become old enough where we may be able to defend for ourselves. So that sense of autonomy surges forward, but some of us don't necessarily get the permission or the encouragement to be more autonomous or be more individual. We stay in those young patterns of like people pleasing that's ultimately about keeping ourselves feeling psychologically safe, but just makes us feel small. Because if our saber-toothed tiger brain goes, okay, well, my safety is dependent upon the approval of the tribe. Because if I'm kicked out of the tribe, I'm going to get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger because I can't defend myself.
Yeah.
We're not living with saber-toothed tigers, and if you disapprove of me, that's okay. I'm still going to be able to survive in my life. But our biology doesn't know that. So we prioritize people approving of us when we're hijacked by our saber-toothed tiger brain because we need your approval for me to feel safe.
Yeah.
But that's not the reality we're living in anymore. So if we can bring conscious awareness to all these processes, at least you have a little bit of choice. If you know, okay, it's really normal for me to feel like, I'm going to want your approval. That doesn't mean that I have to have it in order to be deemed a nice person.
Yeah.
Or that if you're upset with me, that's okay. You can be upset with me and I will survive. I will be okay.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. So our personality is effectively learned behaviour.
Yeah, to a point.
Yeah. So how would you say that we can learn those behaviours and almost reconnect with our authentic self?
For me, the biggest thing is awareness. And self-awareness, certainly in my experience and what I'm passionate about, is education. So having access to this kind of information, I believe, shouldn't just happen when you're in crisis and going to therapy. Like, we get taught business studies, science, maths. I do believe we need to be told how we work as human beings and how the psyche works and how conditioning works. And that these are processes that are really normal, that you don't need to feel shame about. It's not about blaming everybody else for what we've been through, but it is about understanding that we have a blueprint, that if we don't consciously investigate, we may just accept as our identity. So unlearning how to not do it is in part learning why we did it in the first place. It's like reverse engineering, and then practicing. And that's what, when we're in therapy or working with a therapist, it's about being able to have another human being to test this stuff out with, to feel the shame of sharing something that I've kept a secret because I felt really bad about it, and my therapist being able to sit with me and not shame me and help me understand it, that I start to not do that to myself. So for me, education is key.
So like almost like children learning it in school from a very young age. Yeah.
I mean, in some countries and in some cultures, you know, whether it's mindfulness or whether it's empathy and emotional intelligence, these are things that are already on the curriculum. At the minute, yes, there's an incredible opportunity with social media that more of this information is being shared, but not always necessarily from credible sources, or people are expressing their own subjective experience as if it is everybody's experience. So, as with social media, there is opportunity. There's also some boundaries that need to be kind of put in place.
Yeah.
It's just going back to what you said before, it's so interesting, the whole like validation, people pleasing thing, because I feel like in this whole year, it's taken me like 30 years to realise that I don't need validation from other people. And now I'm just like looking to myself, and I feel like I've let go of people. Oh, I'm still a people pleaser, like I'll just put it out there, but I've definitely grown. But it's so annoying that I didn't know about it before. I wish I had like saved all those years.
Well, I mean, to super cringy with the brand, but this is the thing you wish you knew sooner.
Yeah, exactly. It's so true.
This is the thing that when I was in therapy and I suddenly had these like light bulb moments where rather than blaming and shaming myself and thinking that it was all my fault, or blaming other people for something that ultimately I needed to take accountability for my own life too, I wish I had known and understood that sooner. And there is sometimes the gift of wisdom that when you figure it out is the right time that you figure it out. But I would much rather people have an access to tools and insights that as a therapist you go through the training and you learn the models and you think, why isn't this available? Why is it that so often people have to be in a really, really dark place to get access to information that helps them to fundamentally understand and empower and help themselves?
Yeah. And how can understanding our nervous system help us actually feel safe enough to set boundaries and show up as our real, true self?
Again, when we understand what's happening to us, with that comes a little bit of a psychological safety. So it's not stopping us from feeling the feelings. We are mammals, we're not robots, we're going to feel things. But so often, certainly even in myself, it's like if I feel scared, I think I shouldn't do it. As opposed to sometimes it's when I feel scared that it means that I'm stepping out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
So for me, in my own experience, just recognizing what's happening to me. So just understanding that my sweaty palms and my racing heart doesn't mean that I am in danger, but it does mean that maybe I'm a bit nervous to do public speaking. And my brain is going saber-toothed tiger. And actually, what I can do is have a little chat with my inner self and say, okay, it's okay that you've got sweaty palms. This is a really normal human physiological response. My heart is pounding because it's sat there thinking it's a saber-toothed tiger. And really what I'm sat with is human beings. So to understand how our body and our brains work and to understand more of our psyche, so whether it's the people-pleasing behaviour or to have sort of metaphors of why and what it is we're doing, can just help us to take that hijack away, where it's like, I don't really understand what's happening to me and I just completely lose any sense of agency and self-control. Even if it buys you a little bit of space, you still do the people-pleasing thing, or you still do, you still don't speak up at a meeting, but you understand why, and you have the option to be able to practice and try again. One of the things I remember finding quite funny and comical that just made things a little less serious was understanding about saber-tooth tiger brain and thinking about it in terms of the nervous system, so like fight, fright, freeze and flop and fawn. So people-pleasing is fawning. So if we were to metaphor out our nervous system and what happens when we people-please, it's like being met with a saber-toothed tiger and trying to pet it, like make it a nice kitty, so that it doesn't then like swipe at us or eat us. And I remember being around this particular person, and I was kissing their ass, to be honest. Like I was like, so I was being really nice to them, and I was being overly complimentary, and I was like, what are you, like in my head I was like, what are you doing? And rather than, I can't believe you're doing this again, you're so pathetic, you're like that really persecutory voice that sometimes can, like, oh, people pleased again, I just imagined this person as like a kitten, and I was like, they're trying to stroke the kitten. Like, and actually, like, it's okay. Like, I don't need to fawn and try and stroke the kitten. Like, I can see what's happening. I can just allow the saber-tooth tiger to be the saber. And in that moment, the person themselves, my brain went, okay, maybe it's not a bigger threat. Like, it's not as big as what my brain is making it out to be. So introducing that sort of metaphorical humor where you're like, I'm trying to tame this kitten.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a saber-tooth tiger, maybe it is more of a kitten. Gives us something else to hold on to. The in of itself just changes the narrative a little bit from when our nervous system and our brains are super hijacked and sometimes can be very persecutory. I don't know if you're sometimes your inner voices are like super shaming or critical and judgy. It's introducing another voice so that one doesn't become the dominant one.
Yeah, and almost reframes the situation for you.
Exactly.
I like that. I literally experienced that exact moment this weekend. I went to someone, I was like, God, I don't want to do it. And she went, I don't know, I just got really like, I wanted to obviously please this person. So I just went, would you mind, would you like to go on our podcast? And he was like, why are you doing this? I was like, I don't know, actually. Would you mind? And it's just like, I got so annoyed at myself afterwards because I was like, I've never done that before. Why did I do that? Like, you didn't need to do that. Just say like, hey, I really like your work. Would you like to come on the podcast? Or like how I did with you. But it's just like, I was just trying to please them because they were the main person of the show.
Yeah.
And again, it's that sense of authority.
Yeah.
So in that moment, we become quite childlike because our blueprint with authority is our sort of parent child. So it's like, please, would you mind become the little girl? Yeah. Because we don't want to be intimidating or threatening. And then you'll like me if I'm smaller than you.
Tiny small Seren.
It's physiological, right? It's like I admire your work, and therefore you become sort of elevated, but also that feels a bit threatening. I'm a bit intimidated, even if it's a positive intimidation.
Yeah.
So I don't want to inconvenience you. I don't. If you shoot me down, I'm small already. It's all of these things.
It's just so small. It's so true.
To be able to recognise them. Right?
Yeah.
And rather than shame yourself, or maybe go down a rabbit hole or a spiral where you're like, I can't believe this, and I did it again. To understand, okay. So there's the little girl in me really wanted his approval or whoever's approval. But I can put my arm around that little girl and go, it's okay, like it's all right. And maybe the adult in you can step forward next time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you.
So you often talk about the quality of your human experience, What does that mean to you, and how can someone begin to improve that?
So I will take ownership that this is a developing concept. So this is something that I've been thinking about more and more recently, because a part of me sort of steps back and says, okay, as a species, as a human race, we're the most advanced technologically. The world is resourced enough for us all to have a good quality life, and yet poverty still exists, racism still exists, there's still divides, there's still war, there's still suffering, and yet a lot of that could be resolved. So why is it not? And so a lot of it for me is around whether people are in survival mode. When we're in survival mode, sort of in a red zone, we are definitely sort of out to look after ourselves a lot of the time, because it's about survival of the fittest. It's quite egoic, and the quality of our consciousness and our self-awareness. One of the things that I think is crudely potent in a really conscious way is where Brené Brown says, actually, we need to stop working our shit out on other people.
Okay.
And when you can take ownership of your shit and stop working your shit out on other people, the world does become a better place. Because a lot of the time we're trying to deal with other people's...
So, like, actually, like, projecting what we feel onto other people?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So it's that sort of semi-comical post I did on social media a while ago of the people who come to therapy are usually coming to therapy because of the people who won't go to therapy. Mm-hmm. So we work out, we're relational beings, we work out usually by projecting on other people our stuff. And either you take it on and you believe it's about you, or you go, actually, no, that's not my hot potato and I don't have to carry it, it's your stuff.
Yeah.
So that sense of a quality human experience, I think, is really about the level of your conscious awareness and understanding what it means to be human. Some of those key psychoeducation elements of, like, saber-toothed tiger brain, and being able to hand back stuff that isn't mine, or I don't need your approval in order to feel worthy, and to be able to have good attachments and healthy relationships and not have to put up with crap that doesn't serve you and that can weigh you down, or that becomes a part of your identity that doesn't need to be. For me, a quality human experience is around being self-aware and then being able to become your fullest expression of your human potential. So rather than stay really small, like we were saying earlier, to be able to take ownership of what it is you dream about your life, or having quality friendships rather than trying to spread yourself too thin. The things that sometimes we get with wisdom and life experience, but do we have to go through so much suffering to get there? So for me, a quality human experience isn't about everything being happy, everything being candy floss and rainbows and unicorns. It's about being able to have a full human experience where there is grief alongside gratitude. There is suffering and pain, but it's a part of our lived human experience, but it's balanced by joy and freedom and peace and love and genuine connection. Because I think we've become too siloed in sort of chasing happiness, where it's a state, it's not a constant being. Or dopamine and pleasure, and we're all just waiting for the jazz hands of life.
Yeah.
Whereas life is about a huge, expansive experience. That's what makes life full, rather than a good life only looking like it's happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where I kind of believe, like, I don't know if this is related, that there's no, like, work-life balance. Like, life is just life. Like, you enjoy it and you should love what you do, and, like... Do you get what I mean?
I think that there's something around accepting the experiences of life rather than arguing that life should be something different.
Yeah.
So it's quite often when I'm working with clients, a lot of their sort of internal suffering is because they are frustrated that something happened that ultimately they had no control over whether it happened or not. But there's this sense of, well, my expectation was here, reality was here, and so there's this huge gap of disappointment because expectation and reality didn't match. Now, we do project expectations. Like, we try to sort of set ourselves up with what to expect. It's how we create a sense of psychological safety before something's happened. So it's a natural process to try and imagine what you might think something would be, or to hope how you might something to work out. But when reality turns out to be different, if we spend so much of our time arguing as if it should be different when it's not any different, that's when we create a lot of our own bitterness and suffering.
Okay.
So if we take what you just said about like trying to enjoy life, it doesn't mean that every moment of life is going to be joyful, but that joy exists. And it's not just dopamine chasing, and it's not just fairy tales and happy ever after and how social media sometimes makes it look. But that to have a full human experience means that we're going to go through hardship, means that we're going to experience loss. But we can experience it all, because when we say, well, I don't want just the emotions I'm not comfortable with and I'm going to block them out, we block all our emotional experience. We can't just, again, Brené Brown, we can't just handpick the emotions we want. We have to experience all of life, or we stunt our experience.
Interesting. So a lot of people in their late 20s and 30s are going through what it feels like an existential crisis, questioning their purpose, identity, what they're really doing with their lives. I know that we've recently been experiencing that. What's really happening psychologically when we hit that point?
Are you asking for a friend?
Maybe.
That's usually the question that I ask. So I have this friend. Existential crisis.
It's just us.
I think actually I'm really glad you asked this question, because for me it's the existential crisis that really speaks to our humanness, as opposed to what we'd call like a more of a neurotic crisis. So bit of psychoeducation. So we have neurotic up here, so like worrying about what other people think, being afraid of people's judgments, sort of all the pathological stuff and anxiety, and then there's all the existential stuff. Existential is like between me and me, so not me and all the other people. It's like, what am I doing with my life, or how's the relationship I feel with myself? It's quieter. It's not as noisy as all the neurotic-y stuff. And existential really is about meaning, purpose, and value. So when I'll speak from my experience, because better just to pathologise on you rather than you guys. so the pace of the world is so fast now, and yet the pace of wisdom sort of bared down from generations is slower. Still, even though we're living in a different time and the world looks very different, so that there are these generational narratives around, by a certain age you get married, these landmarks of life that we hear from whether it's grandparents or parents with super good intentions, like, oh, by the time I was 24 I was married and had 4 kids, and you're like, oh my goodness, I'm just trying to figure out my life. Because the world and the landscape is so very different. What used to be sort of the midlife crisis, which is existential crisis, it's like, I've got all the things that I thought I was working towards, but the expectation and the reality of how I feel is not what I imagined. So when I was in my early 20s, I was really in a rush to succeed at life. And that, in my subjective fantasy, was like, I'm going to be married, I'm going to have a mortgage, I'm going to have a white picket fence and a dog. And it very much was influenced by Desperate Housewives.
Yeah.
I was like the Gabby and Brie.
I was going to say, which one were you?
I wanted to be Gabby, but I didn't want to be sort of bratty, but I didn't want to quite be Brie, but I'm probably more of the Brie.
Yeah. I love that.
But there was this real hurry to grow up and to be settled, because I just didn't want to be in internal turmoil, which part of is like adolescence and trying to figure yourself out, and it's a normal part of the human experience. It's an existential, it's an experiential experience that's all to do with meaning, purpose, and value. And now, because it used to be that you maybe get to your 50s and you'd have your midlife crisis, because we are living so much faster and because we are progressing in different ways faster, it's now sort of morphing into like the quarter life crisis.
Okay.
And so many of the landmarks that we would measure ourselves, so like maybe our parents had a mortgage in a 4-bedroom house in their mid-20s because properties cost this much and they were getting paid this much and it was viable, whereas now many of us are in our 30s, like how do we afford to move out, and the cost of living, and it's gone up, and it's incomparable. But yet we are comparative creatures, and compare and despair doesn't help us. So this sense of, I feel like I should have everything figured out, but there's so many different landmarks that I feel I have to hit, but there's an incongruence also with myself and how I think I'm meant to behave, and there's all this external reflection that social media... I didn't have social media when I was 13, 14. And when I see with my bonus kids, that's stepkids for anybody who doesn't know the phrase, bonus kids, when I see them now, and I think, and we have a little giggle where we compared a video of me dancing around with my friends when I was like 14 versus how like my bonus daughter dances around.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my goodness, I look like a super geek, and I'm like clumsy, and I'm not a curated Kardashian. And that's why I think these landmarks are so far apart. We don't know where to measure. And like I said, your saber-tooth tiger brain looks for a sense of like, where do I sit in the tribe? Am I okay? Do I have a sense of, status, authority? These are normal human experiences and cravings for a sense of like, how safe do we feel? So the existential crisis, I believe, and what I'm seeing is like, I've achieved a lot of those things, but now what? And actually, what happens if I've achieved some of those things that I thought I'd achieve earlier than what I expected? And what if I haven't achieved some of the things I thought I should achieve, that my parents said, well, by this age I was doing this, and you're like, well, dating apps aren't exactly my friend right now. That, I think it's that crisis of meaning, and knowing how to make meaning in our lives, and what is even meaningful to me or to you. That's what people don't necessarily have enough space to personally inquire about, because we're completely overwhelmed with external data and stimulus.
Yeah.
That there isn't necessarily space to really check in and self-connect and go, what is it that I value and what do I really think about that? So we're just at sea.
Yeah.
A lot of the time.
Wow.
Does that resonate?
That does.
Yeah, definitely.
And just asking for a friend. How would we begin to navigate those feelings?
Number one, it's normal. So like, that sometimes that existential crisis of like, what's the point, and I don't know what I'm here for, and can look like more pathological forms of mental health, where if someone's saying, I don't see what the point is, we've got to be really careful that we differentiate between I don't see the point in existing, and we have somebody who potentially is thinking about ending their life in the more extreme mental illness sense of the word, or that existential angst of I don't, for what? For what am I climbing this corporate ladder for? For what am I, chasing the dating apps for, if it's all just smokes and mirrors?
Yeah.
So having the time and space to personally inquire with yourself, to build a relationship with yourself. You said something earlier, Serenity, when you were like, I don't need other people's validation.
Yeah.
And we've got to be careful we don't swing the pendulum so far away from, I either need everybody else's validation or I don't need anybody's validation.
Yeah.
And I'm just hyper-individualistic. It's me, myself, and I. I
Yeah.
can't rely upon anybody, and I'm misindependent, and...
Yeah, like hyper independent.
Exactly,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's more about, okay, who can I seek counsel with? Who's in my life, whose values I align with and I trust, and it does matter what they think of me because they're a good mirror.
Yeah.
To how I believe my values are. And for when shit really gets tricky, who helps me feel safe?
Yeah.
Who can I sit with? And when my nervous system is completely out of whack, whose capacity from their regulated nervous system can I borrow?
Yeah.
So the first thing, I guess, is that it feels semi-cliche to say if you're having those sort of existential, anxious feelings, it's okay. It's a signpost to connect with yourself as opposed to a symptom you just immediately want to repress or get away from.
Okay, thank you.
Before we wrap up, we ask everyone this question. I feel like you kind of answered it earlier, but we're going to ask you anyway.
So I have to practice.
Yeah. What do you wish you knew sooner, Charlotte?
Oh, that feels really profound. I'm noticing now my like sensitive side. I wish I knew sooner what it fundamentally means to be a human being. I think that there is an assumption that we should know because we are one. And for me, having had access through therapy and through training to become a therapist too, and delivering the psychoeducation that I now deliver to individuals and corporations, when I see the relief on people's faces when they go, oh, so my experience is normal, or oh, that helps me to make sense of why I've done X, Y, Z in my life, and I don't have to carry the shame or the guilt, or actually, no, I think I know what I need to do in order to take more ownership of my life and my choices. That's what I believe everybody should know sooner, is to have an education that's accessible about what it means to be a human being.
Love that. Thank you. And thanks so much for joining us. I've definitely learned a lot.
Yeah, this has been amazing.
We can talk about what your friend is going through later.
And where can people find you?
So you can find me predominantly on Instagram at Be Conscious with Charlotte, also on LinkedIn. Charlotte Braithwaite is where you can find me.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been honestly such an amazing conversation. It's such a hot topic at the moment. And yeah, it's just really nice to be here with you.
Thank you for actually inviting the conversation, because this is the way that people are going to learn about it more, and at least then have the invitation to explore for themselves. And whether that's therapy or whether that's just, reading more about it or listening to other podcasts, episodes, it's planting the seeds and then allowing it for people to grow.
Yeah.